Welcome! Another edition of It's Still Real to Me. Everything ZASLOW Show 2.0, including It's Still Real to Me, presented by our title sponsor, Anidjar and Levine, accident attorneys, 800-747-FREE. That's 800-747-3733. If you're involved in any kind of an accident, any personal injury coming from it, it could be a car accident, motorcycle, boating, slip and fall, hit and run. I send you to Anidjar and Levine, accident attorneys, because you're going to be treated like family, just like I was when we started out this show. So Anidjar and Levine, accident attorneys, 800-747-FREE, 800-747-3733. Joey Levin, of course, here with us today on a Saturday afternoon where we will preview All In, what's being billed as the biggest professional wrestling show of all time. Takes place local Eastern time, Sunday afternoon. So that's tomorrow. So we'll do a little bit of preview. We'll go through the card. We'll run that down. But we didn't expect this to end up being the case for this week. But today's show, for the most part, is going to be dedicated to what took place on SmackDown last night. As a couple days ago, Thursday, we get word that Bray Wyatt, you get, among the most shocking stories in the world of professional wrestling, maybe all time, that right in the thick of the prime of his career at 36 years old, Bray Wyatt passes away. So, Joey, what is the first thing that went through your mind when you got the news? Did you hear it from me first when I sent you a note?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I was at work.
The first thing that went through my mind, and we'll get to this second, we'll get to what the cause of death was in a moment here. But the first thing that went through my mind, oh man, please don't let it be suicide. Please don't let it be suicide. And, thank goodness we did find out the next day, because the family wanted to clarify what the actual cause of death was. But that was the first thing that went through my mind when you have someone, especially someone who, is in incredible shape, is a physical specimen, and has a good career. You don't want it to turn out to be something like suicide. And that was the first thing that went through my mind. I was very relieved that was not the case.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that, just because he's been off air for a while now, and they said he's been sick. Something was going on. They didn't say what it was, but he's been out with some type of illness. Obviously we know now it was some type of heart condition that he was dealing with. And all the rumors of when he was going to come back and what was going on with him was always sort of predicated on how he's recovering from whatever it was. And, credit to the wrestling media guys who cover this kind of stuff, because I think, the Sean Ross Sapps of the world probably knew a lot more about what was going on in his life than a lot of people, the casual fan or the regular fan probably knew. And they did a good job of not over reporting or saying things that, would have been disrespectful to him and his family while he was going through whatever he was going through. So yeah, I didn't really think that. I just, I think it was the first thing that came to my mind was he's the same age as me.
Yeah.
We're the same age. And I think because he's had so many different character changes and different iterations of what he was in WWE, I think my first instinct was I know he's married to JoJo Offerman, who was a ring announcer for WWE. He has young kids. Then I was also just man, he really has so much more. There's so much more in the tank there. And I think we forget how long he was in WWE because things kept changing. And, because of the way things went down earlier in the year with his last thing, I think everyone was just so desperate to get him back and see what he could really do as Bray Wyatt, as Wyndham Rotunda. So it was just shocked to me. I was just I can't believe that at this age, that really in the prime of his life and career, that it didn't really register to me. It was just shocking.
So if you hadn't heard the cause of death, the family wanted it to be known, without getting into too much detail, that he apparently contracted COVID earlier in the year. It sounds like maybe he had a heart condition that he's always had in his life. And the COVID affected that. It had been giving him problems. And he had a heart attack on Thursday. He had a heart attack and he died. And I mean, I can't believe we're still dealing with this fucking COVID killing people. And like, I understand, did COVID kill? Well, COVID, gave him this heart problem that he was having. So yeah, it's kind of like he died from COVID, and so I can't believe we're still doing this thing with COVID. And that's how he passed away unexpectedly. And so you have SmackDown last night where, there's no playbook for how to handle this kind of stuff. And like, I believe it was with Eddie Guerrero. Maybe it was the Chris Benoit show. I mean, who the fuck wants to talk about that? But I feel like maybe it was the Eddie Guerrero show where instead of doing an actual scripted show, they scrapped all that and just for 2 hours, they just did good, clean matches, no interferences, no crazy finishes. Let's just put on a wrestling show. And they essentially did that last night. I mean, there was a little bit of storyline involved. You had the Hurt Business, Lashley and the Street Profits. Feels like they're setting up for Lashley and Sheamus, right? Does that feel like that's what they're doing there with the Brawling Brutes?
That match, that was a weird match. That whole thing was kind of weird. Like, Cody was great, and we'll talk about Terry Funk obviously too. And I know it's weird to be picky in a situation like this when you're trying to honor someone, but a lot of people online talking about Terry Funk hardcore match wasn't really a hardcore match.
Well, they brought the table out there.
There was one, but it just wasn't it wasn't a hardcore match. There was a table,
right?
And they pushed the storyline with
well, I think I'm just guessing.
There just wasn't much hardcore about it. I don't care. I mean,
I think that's a network. Do you think that's a network television thing? Do you think that's a Fox thing?
Well, I figured it was a Fox thing, but
I think it is.
I just thought like some kendo stick shots or some chair shots or something. Like, there was.
I think that's a Fox thing.
There just wasn't any hardcore about it, and I saw a lot of people online being like, "Man, this is not really honoring him," which is whatever. I mean, it is what it is.
It's whatever. I think they did the best they could within the limitations that they had.
Yeah.
You also had Io Sky, so she defended her championship. And in a match that didn't have any real consequence. They and of course the main event, LA Knight versus Finn Balor. Was it Finn Balor? And I understand, like, you had some wrestlers who are normally on Raw and some wrestlers who aren't even, who are on the shelf right now, one of whom isn't even employed by the company, who flew out there to be part of the remembrance.
Who, Rowan?
Yeah. But was Finn Balor in the main event because did they want the last guy that Bray Wyatt faced versus the first guy that he faced as the Fiend? Was there anything to that? That's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But that wasn't like confirmed in any way, right?
He might have already been there, but there was no plan for that match originally. That my understanding. And actually, remember, Jimmy Uso was supposed to be on the show today, so last night. So that got scrapped, obviously.
Yeah, you got to scrap that.
And I would imagine that would have ended the show. So I'm guessing they scrapped that. They ended the show with LA Knight and Finn. And by the way, I mean, what a spot to have for LA Knight to be in that situation, Yep.
And his promo was great, by the way. The final line of his promo, somebody previously, Miz, told me, the next time you see me, run. Great line. So
I was a little, you could just tell a little bit that LA Knight was not himself during the promo. Like, he wasn't the same guy he normally is. And how could you be? I mean, what a spot to be put in, especially when, like, you're not even, like, they were coworkers and they did a program together, but I don't, he even said it in his promo. I'm not going to sit here and not lie like we were best friends.
Yeah.
To start that promo talking about Bray Wyatt and then to weave in the storyline with Miz. At that point, when he went from Wyatt to Miz, I'm like, oh, this is weird. We're honoring Wyatt and he's pushing his storyline. And then to bring it back around to end it with run.
It's very good.
Was really, really well done. I thought it was a great tribute.
And then he gets a win over Finn Balor in the main event. It was a really good night for LA Knight.
But I mean, just the fact that the company would put you could have had Braun Strowman and Rowan come out and just talk about Bray Wyatt.
Well,
right?
so the end of the night, Braun Strowman, I assume it was Braun Strowman's silhouette that was in the ring at the very end of the night before,
No, that wasn't a silhouette.
No,
I thought it was someone in the ring.
It wasn't?
No, it was the board. And it was the camera shot. So the camera shot was the far end of the ring showing the big jumbotron of Bray Wyatt standing in the ring.
That wasn't actually someone standing in the ring?
No, the only thing in the ring was the light, was the lantern. And it was an incredible shot because when I first saw it, I was like, what the hell? What is this? This is fucking nuts. And then I was like, oh, okay, I see what they did. It was like a camera trick they pulled, which was
fooled me.
They were on the I could look, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna go rewatch it now. But what I thought it was this long shot from the far end of the ring towards the jumbotron. So it looked like there was someone in the ring, but it was just a shot of Bray in the ring previously, and it covered because you know how the jumbotron now is like an entire huge. It's not like a screen; it can go from all the way to the top to the floor. Mm-hmm. So they just covered that whole thing, and it looked like Bray was standing in the ring because of the angle of the shot. But I don't think he was. I think the only thing in the ring was the lantern, and that was on the screen.
Wow, I thought
it was remarkable.
I thought it was Braun Strowman in the ring. Now, do we know what they did after the show went off television?
I haven't seen anything. No. I haven't seen anything I haven't seen any clips, anything on social media. They might not have done anything.
They may not have done anything. Okay.
Because you would think that would have been out pretty quick.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, who do you they had Cody come out and talk about Terry Funk.
Yeah, I thought Cody did a really good job there.
Yeah, Cody's great with that.
I thought he did a really good job.
But what do you do? Like, what do you do for Bray? Like, who do you have come talk about him? Like Braun and Rowan? I mean, like even I like to put it this way, even in AEW when Brody Lee passed away, Rowan didn't really go out there and talk about Brody. He came out and held up the sign, remember, with the Dark Order.
I think the guy you do it is. I think the guy that does it is Triple H. If anyone's going to do it,
yeah, Alexa Bliss was she was going to try to. She put out a video. She was going to try to be there, but she couldn't get a flight, so she put out a video on social media because she would have been obviously someone.
Yeah,
that was very close with him.
That'd have been good.
But yeah,
even Randy Orton would have been great if Randy Orton was around these days. He'd have been great.
I mean, I know it's crazy to think about it this way, but like Cena's going to be on SmackDown next week. They have a long history, him and Bray.
I'll tell you, now look, I had been critical in the past of Bray Wyatt, where the stories are super creative and they're fun, but when it gets down to actually getting in the ring, there's never been a payoff for me. I think it always falls short. But you go and look at his career at WrestleMania, and holy shit! First of all, he never won. He was like 0-5. But you look at the names that he fought at WrestleMania. All right, Randy Orton, where he went into that WrestleMania 33 as the champion and fought Randy Orton. He fought Cena. He fought Undertaker. He fought Randy Orton again at WrestleMania 37 as the Fiend. And he had
feuds with anybody who was at the top during the time, or even before the time he was there,
and a promo segment with Rock. What was that at WrestleMania 31, maybe? Yep. So I mean, he never won. He never won at WrestleMania, but
he feuded. He feuded with Jericho. He feuded with Brock. He feuded with Daniel Bryan, The Shield.
But the people that he was in the ring with at WrestleMania is the best of the best.
I know. And to that end, I rewatched, and I know not everybody loved it at the time, and people probably still don't love it. Firefly Funhouse is the most creative thing that's ever been done in WWE. It's not even close. Like go back and rewatch it. I watched it again this morning. It is the most creative. It's not wrestling, but it is the most creative thing it is so good. And it is like the references they make, the creative beats they hit throughout that whole thing. And like that was all Bray. Mm-hmm. Cena obviously plays a role in it because the whole thing was about Cena's career. They were sort of like running down the history of Cena's career. But it was incredible. And he's the only person that could do it and that they would allow to do it because of the way his mind worked. It was like, Triple H talked about him after his last match. When they talked about it, he said, like, sometimes he's like, I try to let Bray do his thing. Sometimes I have to like reel him in because his mind goes so many places. I have to reel him in. But actually, I was thinking about it too, is like when it first, back to your question from the beginning, like what the first thing that came to my mind, there were two other things that came to my mind, like when it first happened, which was one, it's like, man, I probably spent the last year shitting on the guy.
Right.
I mean, I pretty much spent the last year just shitting on him.
Me too.
And it's not his fault. I mean,
not personal.
It's not personal, but it's like kind of like, man, we're shitting on the storyline and the gimmick.
But I don't know. Like, like it wasn't up to snuff, man. Like, I don't want to do. I don't want to.
Well, the return.
I probably don't ever want to do it. But the LA Knight versus Bray Wyatt stuff was shit.
Well, the return was incredible.
Yes,
the return was unbelievable.
Yeah, I watched it again yesterday. I think
and his promo, the promo
when he first the next week, nailed it.
I was in a bad place, and you guys lifted me up, that whole thing.
Well, and that's why I was worried about Suicide and stuff. He's a super emotional guy. He's obviously very creative, and then the other thing, I was worried.
And the other thing I thought, and to that end of the concern about Suicide was like, man, I was like, I think if you're not a wrestling fan, or even if you are a wrestling fan, because obviously you were concerned about the Suicide thing, like, I feel like most people heard about this and were probably like, oh, another wrestler died. He probably took drugs or did steroids or drank, like, I think a lot of people probably still, because I think the industry still, even though that's gone away a lot.
That hasn't happened in a while. It's been a long time.
But still, if you're not a wrestling fan, you probably still assume like, oh, something shady, something weird happened here.
Yeah.
It is God, it is so weird that him and Brody both had just
health issue.
Like weird health issues at such a young age.
Yeah.
But he debuted. I mean, he debuted on the main roster before the Shield.
Yeah, he was in Nexus, right?
Before the Usos.
Wasn't he one of the Nexus guys?
He was Husky Harris.
Husky Harris, yeah.
Yep. It was cool, which I didn't realize because I was looking up stuff about him. So, I mean, I think, first of all, Uncle Howdy is Bo Dallas, right? Like that was sort of confirmed.
I think that's been confirmed, right? Yeah.
Bray debuted like as Bray Wyatt in FCW in 2012. The first match he ever lost in FCW as Bray Wyatt was to Bo Dallas.
Oh, really?
His last match he ever had was capped off by Bo Dallas. It's pretty cool.
I'll tell you what. You know how over Bo Dallas would be if he decides to move forward and still, do pro wrestling? He would be. Yeah. He shouldn't. Like, he doesn't have to do Uncle Howdy bullshit. He's maybe not the previous Bo Dallas, but maybe just more of a tougher badass type of Bo Dallas. He would be very over. People want to see that now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people have been clamoring for him to come back for a while. He's good.
Yeah. Yep.
Bo Leave.
I love that version of him. I do.
That was awesome. There was a lot. There was a lot left on the table with that.
He was an NXT champion.
Yeah. But I was also remembering in 2014, so basically a decade ago, me and my brother, I went to Jersey for my brother's birthday. That weekend, Extreme Rules was in New Jersey, and it was Bray Wyatt versus John Cena in a steel cage match at Extreme Rules, and we dressed as Bray Wyatt. We went and we bought Bray Wyatt outfits. And this was, Louisiana swamp Bray Wyatt. So we were wearing like white linen pants, a black t-shirt and like a flower type shirt.
I think that's the best version of him
with the hat, and like people on the street, people on the train getting there, like would put their hands out to us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then even at the arena, like I got like, we were drinking. So I would like get on my knees and put my hands out the way Bray Wyatt did. And people were like chanting whole world. And this is a decade ago, so that he had an impact immediately, not the Husky Harris. When he came in as Bray, the Wyatt family, they were pushed to the top. He was at the top for such a long time.
He was that version was champion,
Yeah.
I got to see him perform as recently as 6 months ago, 7 months ago, whenever it was that he returned. He was at before he came back on television, he performed at a house show in Miami, and it was great. It was really cool. He fought Jinder Mahal, and after, everyone, there's been this outpouring of, love for him and how great he was. And I know fans have posted videos of interactions and what have you. And I mentioned it after I went to that show. I was very, very impressed where for a good 10 minutes after that match.
Well, yeah, I remember you talking about that.
He did pictures with everyone on the railing. He stopped for everyone and took pictures. And I thought that was really, really impressive. It was really cool. So, the weird thing, unless you have anything else to say about Bray?
No, I mean, I think the only other thing, in terms of his legacy as a professional wrestler is, I think he's the last, and I know this is not like the most eloquent way to say it, he's the last of a dying breed of professional wrestler. I think in some ways, maybe he was like 10, 15 years late in a certain way. Like, he was always a big deal in the wrestling world, but like, Undertaker is a pop culture phenomenon, but would Undertaker be if he debuted in this era? Right. Bray was probably meant for an era where there was still a little bit more suspension of disbelief in terms of what a wrestling character is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's probably the last one of his kind that'll ever be at the top of a card in a major company. I just, and that's a testament to him and how talented he was, because there's just nobody else that can really pull off these types of, being the Fiend in the Firefly Funhouse and being like this supernatural, weird character. Fans don't really go for it anymore. And if they do go for it, you're not your Orange Cassidy or your Luchasaurus or you're something like that where, realistically, you're not going to be the top guy in a top company. He was that good in an era where that didn't really get over. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we'll see it again. I just don't know that we'll see anything like it again. It would be hard to do it.
The timing, so shitty where, Terry Funk passes away a couple days before. And look, Terry Funk passing away at 79 years old is not a tragedy. Terry Funk passing away at 79 is, you celebrate the life of Terry Funk and everything that he contributed and what he was and everything he meant to people. He was 79 years old. Maybe it's a little bit earlier than you would hope to pass away, but he had a great full life. I think everyone would say that. Bray Wyatt passing away is tragic, happening at 36, but the timing is so shit because you don't know how to balance the trip. You want to pay tribute to Terry Funk, but you don't want it to be overshadowed by Bray Wyatt. But the Bray Wyatt situation, unfortunately, is like so much bigger than Terry Funk passing away when he did, and it's like a mess.
Can I tell you, and I know this is, I could be wrong about this. If Bray Wyatt didn't pass away, I'm not sure that they would have done a whole lot for Terry Funk. I think they would have put up a graphic and maybe like a package, but I don't think they fly Cody in to talk about him. I don't know that they do a match for him.
They do the 10-bell salute. I don't know how much more they do, but I understand what you're saying, but you don't want. But now you're faced with, all right, how do we balance it out so it doesn't seem like we're glossing over?
I thought they did it perfectly. I think
they did a really great job too.
I think the whole show was dedicated to Bray, and they did a really nice segment for Terry Funk.
Yeah.
You know, they had Cody come out, who is the biggest star. I mean, he, other than Roman Reigns, he's the biggest star, who obviously has such a deep connection to Terry Funk. They did a match to honor him, a hardcore match. Yeah, whatever you think of it. And, you know, and that's more than a lot of wrestlers who pass away at an old age get.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the show, and, you know, they did the clips with the QR codes that actually, if you scan the QR codes actually took you to the full clips on YouTube.
Cool.
Which was pretty cool. Yeah, so I thought they did a really good job of the balance, right? You couldn't go overboard with the Terry Funk stuff because, like you said, you know, he's still 79, is still relatively young.
But it's not a tragedy, Terry.
But it's not. Well, I don't know. Do we know how he passed away? Was he just?
I think he was just old.
Really?
I mean, I saw like
it's not that old to die of old age, but
no. But I think when you've lived his life, I think it's
right.
Really
Sure,
old.
sure.
Like I saw a recent clip. I think it was
he like 78, 79?
79.
Yeah.
I think it was a clip from back in January where Mick Foley visited him recently. And dude, I thought it was Dory. Like, yeah. I mean, Terry Funk, he was really old. I almost, if you just showed me, I'm like, oh, that's Dory Funk. No, it was Terry.
I'm going to tell you, I credit in some ways Terry Funk for getting me back into wrestling. And I'll tell you why. He was a big part of that movie, Wrestling with Shadows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I did not watch wrestling for a long time. Like when I was in college, there was a few years where I just didn't care.
Yeah.
And I watched that movie after I got out of college.
Everyone goes through their lulls where they step away. Everyone does.
And I remembered, like, you know, that movie went through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But he was a big part of that movie. And after that, I was like, I'm going to get back in because this is really compelling shit. And like seeing what they went through in life and this and that.
And watching Jake smoke crack.
Yeah, that was nuts. But I will say, like, man, there's not a lot of guys who, you know, had an impact on as many generations of wrestling fans the way he did. I mean, he was in the Attitude Era. He was a tag team champion, like with him and Mick Foley. I mean, Chainsaw Charlie, right?
Yep.
That was his alter ego guy.
Yep.
I don't remember Terry Funk from NWA. I don't remember him against us. I wasn't alive.
Right.
But I do remember him and Mick Foley winning the tag titles. I mean, he was awesome.
I love Terry Funk as the guy trying to keep Mick Foley from going back to the ring at Hell in a Cell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And then Undertaker tombstoned him, I believe.
And him and Mick and probably Dusty, I bet, get a lot of credit for probably helping put ECW on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like Dusty didn't wrestle, but he showed up. But him and Mick, you know, they did a lot for ECW, and that changed everything. Them hardcore matches, ECW, that changed the whole landscape of the business.
I thought they did a really good job last night. The beginning, especially the first 10 minutes, were pretty heavy. You know, you see the guys were there. I liked seeing Eric Rowan on the stage. I liked obviously that Braun Strowman was there. Did you notice anyone else who you didn't expect to see?
No,
obviously guys like Finn and Cody, they flew in, they wanted to be there.
Yeah. No, Rowan was the only shocking one. I mean, they announced ahead of time on social, people were saying that Braun was going to be there.
Yeah.
But Rowan that was weird. Yeah.
Not
weird, but it was cool that he was there.
That was great. It was really great.